This necklace was designed to pair perfectly with the kind heart flower pot earrings, but with a twist. In today's tutorial, I'll show you how to create a statement focal drop inspired by the flower pot design, then walk you through an asymmetrical necklace pattern using pink and purple beads from the TGBE kit and add-ons. The only extra supply you'll need is black Miyuki 11 seed beads. So let's get started. Necklace design, I am choosing to use the purple amethyst color of the Soft Flex beading wire this time. You can perfectly use the pink that came with it, the pink tourmaline, but on this one I'm just going to decide to do the purple because I have a whole lot of purple that I'm going to be using. So I'm just deciding to use that one. Now the first thing that you're going to need to do this focal is have a piece of wire cut off. I've got about 8 inches or so cut off here. What we're going to do first is we're going to make a little loop up here at the top, and then we're going to put a crimp on that loop, and then we're going to add our flower pot design like we did with the earring. So move a couple of these things out of the way. Now the only difference that we're going to do with the earring, if you remember, we just kind of estimated what our loop size was going to be. On this one, I'm actually going to use a Sharpie, put that in the middle of our loop. If you noticed, I've kind of made the loop be about the same length or so, the two ends be about the same length. So I'm going to put a crimp tube on here and then use the Sharpie to kind of give me a gauge as to the size. So that way, excuse me, that way I know for sure what the size of the loop is going to be. So since it was hard for me to hold it, I'm going to go ahead and put the crimp tube on, and then we're going to slide it down, trying to make sure that the wires don't cross, the two sides don't cross over. And then put the Sharpie in there, and then use that as a gauge to how large my loop is going to be. And you can use whatever you have at the house. If you have Sharpies, then perfectly fine, you can use those. If you have something else, if you have a different type of pen, or even like a tube of for seed beads and things like that, if you have that sitting around, that's something that you could use too. So putting the crimp tube in the middle of the crimper, and I'm going to go ahead and crimp down. I'm going to take the Sharpie out right away. That way it's just easier for me to finish the crimp. And just make sure it gets turned around a couple of times so you can get all of your sides all crimped down. I think I had turned it too many times in the same spot. It wasn't looking right. There we go, that looks better. So there is your little crimp, ball of crimp down there. Alright, so then that's set up. Move that out of the way. Now we're going to build our flower pot just like we did with the earrings. Starting off with the heart, we're going to go from the top of the heart down to the bottom, put both strands through the heart, and then now your loop sits there at the top. Then we're going to put on the large pink rondelle. Let's see, that one's a little bit longer than that one, so we'll put that on like that. Then we'll put the bead cap on that looks like a flower pot to me. So this is the same size that we used in the earring. And then we're going to put our little spacer, our little daisy spacer, or atom spacer. We're going to put that on to resemble the table that it's going to sit on. Then we're going to do the same thing that we did in the earring. We're going to put another crimp tube on. And get that down as close as you can to it, because just like what we did with the earring, the earring is going to be sitting off just a little bit like that. So you're going to have a little bit of room in between the top crimp and the actual heart, because you're going to have to be able to get your crimp tube or your crimper around the crimp tube. So I'm going to move the crimp tube off just a little bit so I can get it in the center of the crimper. And then once I get it in the center of the crimper, of course everything's not cooperating with me at the moment. There we go. Then I'm going to move it down as close as I can. Put the crimper up against the edge of the beads as close as I can, and then crimp down. And then now we have to see if we can get everything to move around like we typically do. Now I'm just twisting with my left hand. I'm leaving the crimp inside the crimper, and I'm just lifting up ever so slightly and just trying to twist. And then that, after a few times, will give you a nice little crimp, just like the top. So, pull that down, and then you have just that little itty bitty small amount of wire in between the top crimp and this one. So all you have to do now, do yourself a little tug test, make sure nothing's moving, and then cut off the excess right up against the crimp tube. And then these are actually long enough that you can save for other projects, kind of similar to what we did with the earrings. So then that is your little drop pendant. So go ahead and meet me back, and I will get everything set up to show you the pattern for the necklace, because we're going to do one pattern on one side of the necklace and then a different pattern on the other side. So I'll meet you back in just a second. This first segment, we will go through the right side of the necklace. Then on the next segment, we'll go through the left side. So on the right side of the necklace, I'm just going to leave everything on the spool itself. And I just have, I don't know, probably about 18 inches or so of wire just sitting here on the spool. So the pattern for the right side of the necklace is going to be different than the left side, like I've been saying. We're going to start off with a pink rondelle. And then we're going to have a black seed bead in between. We're going to put a total of 5 of our pink rondelles on, and then put a black seed bead in between. So 5 of the rondelles and 4 of the seed beads. That's 3, 4, and 5. So then that's the first portion. Then we're going to put one of our purple rondelles. So without putting any seed beads, we're just going to put one of the smaller out of the 2 purple rondelles. Then we're going to do 3 of our pink rondelles with black seed beads in between. So do that 1, 2, and 3. Whoops, don't lose everything. So just 3 rondelles and 2 black seed beads. Then we're going to do another purple rondelle. And then we're going to repeat that pattern one more time. So 3 of our pink, and 1 of our purples. So that is, whoops, if I can get all the beads to cooperate with me. That's the way the necklace should look so far. Something like that. Alright, so then the next step, we have 3 of our pink rondelles again. I have everything written down off to the side. That's why I keep pausing and making sure that I'm not going to tell you the wrong thing again. Because I want my necklace to turn out the way that I had planned it beforehand. So we're doing the 3 pink rondelles with 2 black beads in between again. And then now should be where we start our flower pots. So after putting on that last pink rondelle, then we're going to start with a flower pot. And now if you remember, we started with our hearts. I've got the heart upside down. We need to go through the top of the heart first, coming out the bottom. Then we're going to pick up one of our pink rondelles, pick up one of our flower pots, going through the top of the flower pot, coming out the bottom, and then pick up one of our tables, which is our little daisy spacer. And then that should have your first flower pot on, like that. Now we're going to put a pink, purple, pink rondelle. So right now we're still using the small purple rondelles. The larger ones are going to go in the center of the necklace. So right now we're using the small ones. So pink, purple, and pink. And then now you're set up to start your next flower pot. So go ahead and pick up your heart, go through the top, pick up another pink rondelle, another flower pot, another table, then do your pink and purple pink again, still using the smaller of the purple, and then start your last of your flower pots. We're only going to have 3 flower pots on this side. And then add your table. Now on this portion, we're going to add our larger of the purple rondelles. So pink, the large purple rondelle, and then a pink, because this is going to be the center of the necklace. So that is what you should have so far. Trying to see if I can get this all on one. This is not working. Here, I'll do it that way. So this is where we started off. So just in case you need to pause it so you can kind of get the pattern and everything, this is where we started off and we went in this direction. So this is going to be the center of the necklace. So go ahead and get caught up with that part and then meet me back and I will show you the other half. Before we move on to the other half of the necklace, we need to add our little pendant. So go ahead and string that on. Now your pendant should be big enough to obviously go around the pink beads that are going to be sitting there, but it's not big enough to where it'll go completely around the large of the purple beads. That's one reason why I put the large purple bead there. So that way it still hangs down similar to what the earrings do, but it won't be just going anywhere throughout the necklace type thing. Alright, to start the pattern for the other side of the necklace, we're going to start off with a pink bead. So we're kind of doing this same little section right in here again. So pink bead, the large purple bead again, and then this is where our pattern is going to be different. So put those 2 beads on. The next one we're going to put on 5 of our pink beads with seed beads in between. So put a pink bead and then 4, it'll be 5 of our pink rondelles and then 4 of our seed beads. 3, 4, and 5. So I've got the 5 on there with the 4 seed beads. Then we're going to put one of our small purple rondelles. Then we're going to do 3 of our pink ones with seed beads in between. So 3 pink rondelles and 2 of our black seed beads. Just like that. Then we're going to put a purple on again. And then now we're just going to add 1 of our pink rondelles and then the last purple. So you basically did 5, 3, and 1 with your pink rondelles on this side. So then this is where it started, where the pendant's hanging right there. And then this is this half of the necklace so far. Now this part of it is pretty simple. We're just going to add black seed beads all the way to the end of where you want it to be. Mine ends up being about 5 inches or so. So I'm not going to let you, or have you sit there and watch me add 5 inches of seed beads. I'm just going to go ahead and add them on here in just a second. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how to put a loop on this side to make it to where on the other side the lobster clasp is going to go. So we're going to make a loop on this side so the lobster clasp has something to clip onto. So meet me back in just a moment and we'll get that crimping done. Alright, so let's get a loop on this side of the necklace. So we're going to put the crimp tube on first, and then we're going to wrap this around through the crimp tube so that way it can create a loop for this part of the necklace. And we want this loop to be not too humongously huge, but we want it to be large enough to where it's comfortable to be able to find the loop on the back of your neck whenever you're trying to put on the necklace, or when whoever's trying to put on the necklace. So I'm going to leave it about like that. So just whatever you're comfortable with. And then we're going to create another crimp. I'm trying to get in the center of the crimp I keep missing it. There we go. And then we're going to twist this around. Come on, twist. Every once in a while it just doesn't want to move. I get that problem every once in a while. There we go. Let's try to crimp it again. There we go. Now it's moving some. Alright, and then this will create our little loop on this side of the necklace. And then on the other side, we will do something similar. There's my little crimp. We'll do something similar on the other side, and we will add our lobster clasp on that side. So our necklace is almost done. Cut off the excess, save that excess, put that in a little jar or a little baggie or something just in case you need it. Then we're going to push all of our beads down from one side to the next. And then let's do the little twirly. We're going to twirl up our, let me give myself a little bit more room on the spool. We're going to twirl our necklace, and then that helps to kind of loosen the beads just a little bit to where your necklace won't be so tight that things aren't going to move correctly. So we want to make sure that everything is all wrapped up, kind of something similar to that. Make sure it's as tight as you want it to be, just like that. And then this is where I'm going to measure. I usually do about 4 finger widths. I usually like to have quite a bit here at the end, just in case I'm having issues with holding on to things because of my shaking. I like to have a little bit extra on the end sometimes, so that way it makes it a little bit easier for me to hold on to if I'm having one of those bad shaky days. So on this side we're going to put the lobster, or the, that's not a lobster, that is a crimp tube. We're going to put the crimp tube on first, and then we're going to put the lobster clasp on. So just go through the whole of the lobster. And then we're going to make our loop. And this is where it sometimes gets a little difficult trying to figure out where we're going to end up putting our crimp tube, because we want to make sure that our crimp tube is sitting as close to the last pink bead as possible as to what you want, because your lobster clasp needs room to be able to move around also. So I'm going to try to make my loop at about the same size as the other loop. This one's going to be just slightly smaller, it looks like, which is fine. It's going to be close. And then I'm going to take my pliers, I'm going to grab onto the crimp tube, and then I'm going to push the pliers down again to where it's sitting up against the bead again. That's something similar to what we did when we did our little pendant here. Grab the pliers and push that crimp tube up against the bead, and then that's where I'm going to crimp down. So there is going to be a little bit of space there, but it should be just fine. It should work out just fine for you. Oops. And as always, I usually do this probably much more than what you need to. You usually don't have to crimp as much as I do. That's what I'm getting at, is that I usually do a little extra. Only because I just want to make sure it's right. I want to make sure that I'm doing it good. I'm going to do my little tug test. Everything seems to be fine. So now we're going to cut off the excess. Whoops. And make sure you're cutting off the excess and not the actual necklace wire, because that would be sad. We would have to start over. Oh, come on, pliers, you can do it. There it goes. And then that completes our necklace so far. And it also gives you that option that if you want to, instead of using this loop, you can always add an extender chain. If this is not going to be long enough to fit around your neck, you can always put an extender chain up there at the top if you'd like to make it a little bit longer. And then that will complete our necklace to have a necklace to go along with our earrings that we did during the unboxing video. this large flower pot design come together? Let me know in the comments. Would you want to see this idea carried into a bracelet as well? If this tutorial was helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more beadwork tutorials and kit-based designs. I'll be revisiting this collection again, and there are plenty more ways these beads can be mixed, matched, and reimagined.